Hey everyone, my name's Rowan, and this is my channel Galaxy Wide. Here I want to talk about things that inspire me or motivate me and explain why I like them. Or at least try to. It's mostly going to be a confused ramble, but let's begin. The Witcher is a series that needs absolutely no introduction. It spans every multimedia platform that we have to date. It's a series of books available in 24 languages. A set of video games, a Polish movie that carried over into 2 seasons of a TV show called The Hexer. It's currently going for its 2nd season of a show on Netflix. It's a collection of audiobooks, and eventually next year it'll drift its way into animation with The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf, which I'm beyond excited for. It's being done by the astounding Studio Mir, who were in charge of a majority of The Legend of Korra and for all of Voltron Legendary Defender. Its primary story will be with Geralt's mentor, Vesemir, who in the show has not been seen or spoken of, but readers and gamers will know him pretty well. But that's a topic for another video. Most people will primarily consume The Witcher through the TV show and books, so that's where I will draw most of my confused rambling from. To make everything a little simpler, the first 2 novels, which the first season of The Witcher is derived from in the series, are a collection of short stories written by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is why the first season is incredibly episodic. I want to talk about one story in particular. It's the first episode or 3rd short story in the books. An important thing to note that in the books, Geralt is repeatedly referenced as the Butcher of Blaviken. So when we are told the story takes place in Blaviken, it means we should pay attention. The show doesn't get that kind of build-up. The lesser of 2 evils, or in the show's case the end's beginning, has Geralt being confronted by 2 separate parties, a sorcerer named Stregobor, and a mercenary known as Shrike, or Renfri. Through Stregobor, we learn that 60 girls, born during an eclipse, are cursed to bring about the end of civilization. He has studied many of these girls and found horrendous mutations inside them, despite his attempts to cure them. One of these girls is the Princess of Fredefolk, who has been harming animals as well as other people for fun. Stregobor deems her immune and wants to study her, so he hires some random guy to kill her and bring her body back to his lab. This doesn't work, and Renfri has been hunting him despite his attempts to kill her using magic, which she is strangely resistant to, and she finally has him trapped within the city. Through Renfri, we learn that her father didn't believe in silly curses or prophecies of the apocalypse, but her mother did. Her mother contacted the Magic Council, and they sent Stregobor to study her. One day she was taken by a thug in the street and brought out to the woods, where she learned that Stregobor hired him to kill her, but didn't say she had to be in good condition, and proceeded to do disgusting things to her. Renfri stabs the man in the ear with a brooch pin, killing him and running away. We also learn through her that Stregobor has tried to kill her several other times since his first attempt. Each side wants Geralt to use his super amazing Witcher powers to kill the other. They each try to convince him that this option is the lesser of 2 evils. Geralt, who sees points on both sides, dramatically turns to the camera and says, "Evil is evil, Stregobor. Lesser, greater, middling. It's all the same to me. So if I'm to choose between one evil and another, I'd rather not choose at all." Which is an amazing quote, but is ultimately wrong. And it brings me to my first big reason as to why I love this episode/chapter. It proceeds to tell us Geralt's entire character arc in a singular quote. Time and time again, Geralt tries to remain neutral, uninvolved, or just flat out distant to the conflict as a whole, and this obviously goes well for him. Geralt is forced to get involved with these conflicts throughout the entirety of the series because of the lessons he learned in Blaviken, the exact same lesson that stains his name, and follows him even into the video games, which are a continuation of the books. And because he chooses not to be involved until the last minute, he's deemed a monster for straight up murdering people. Which is actually hilarious because in the books, fairy tales are kinda real. They're just more realistic. So Renfri's band of men is actually meant to be dwarfs as a reference to Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Geralt is subsequently ran out of town. Going forth, Geralt does actively try to resolve these conflicts with his unique perspective, which is usually to help the downtrodden or people who suffer because of those who abuse their power. A bigger theme that will prevail throughout the series is that monsters aren't always evil, and that sometimes it's the people who become the monsters. This is also shown to us in the story with Renfri and Stregobor. Renfri repeatedly refers to herself as a monster, and often called Stregobor monster. Renfrey even adopts her persona to bolden her more brutal tendencies as a mercenary. She goes by Shrike. A shrike is a small bird that grabs its prey and impales it on a spike or a sharp branch. Renfrey does the same to most of her enemies. Geralt, being a Witcher, is also a mutant. His DNA has been touched by magic and strange potions. People often call Witchers heartless, monsters, and despite this, Geralt is surprisingly human and kind to people. But he's usually cold and distant on the outside, desensitized to most of the things, so when our big fight happens, Renfrey says they made her a monster. She didn't choose to be one. This strikes a chord with Geralt, as Witchers are often young boys, forcefully taken from their homes. Many other characters in the series will claim society made them into monsters to vilify the actions taken against them. And despite all this, the true monsters, the ones that harm others, but are justified in the eyes of society, remain in their comfy sorcerer towers. Part 2 of why this is amazing will focus exclusively on the show, as everyone will imagine the fights differently in their heads. Renfrey at this point is willing to kill the townsfolk, one by one, to make Stregobor come out of his tower. Geralt reluctantly steps in to protect the innocent townspeople. The fight starts with this amazing turnaround shot of the crossbowman firing, and the way it's led leads us to believe that it will hit and impale Geralt, yet when we reach him, he skillfully deflects the bolt away with a resounding ting. And my god, the sound design on that is amazing. From there, Geralt proceeds to quite literally butcher these men without any effort. It's 1 versus 8, and this isn't hard for Geralt. He's superhuman. He hunts monsters, and these men aren't monsters. I'd like to touch a little bit on fight choreography. While it's not my specialty, and I don't really know anything outside I've already learned from a YouTube video, this is all fight choreography, specifically a group fight, which has its own limitations and headaches to get through. Henry Cavill is an amazingly physical actor, but he isn't a stuntman. He still has to worry about where he's going at all times. On top of all of that, directors only have a limited amount of time to shoot, so if you can't get the takes that you need, the editors have to do extra work, and we don't get our beautiful long take. One of the big limitations with a group fight is that you have to figure out what everyone else is doing while our hero mows down the bad guys. The Witcher sidesteps this limitation by both having Henry Cavill move faster than everyone else because he's superhuman, and staging this fight in an alleyway so it's smaller one-on-one fights. This gives us the effect that Geralt isn't playing around, he's here to kill, and to prove that point, Geralt mows through these guys and beheads our last enemy. When we reach Renfrey, the fight takes longer, has more cuts, and is in an open area, but this is where it truly shines. The sound design really comes to life with this almost fantasy sword swinging noise, as if the very steel of their blades can sing. We hear a little bit of it with Renfrey's band, but this is where they want you to hear it, because we don't just hear it from Geralt's sword, we hear it from Renfrey's too. During this fight, we learn some more of Renfrey's motivation and ideology. Renfrey believes she wasn't born evil, that they made her this way, and challenges Geralt to use his silver sword, because silver is for monsters. They proceed to take blows until Geralt pushes her up against the wall, where Renfrey shouts at him that they created me just as they created you. We aren't so different. Renfrey proceeds to stab Geralt with a hidden dagger. Now, it's important to note that Geralt hasn't killed her yet. 1, because he doesn't want to. And we know that he can do that because there's 8 dead guys in an alleyway. And 2, because he might actually believe her. That if she could just drop this stupid feud and leave, she could live her life the way that she wants to. That there doesn't have to be a lesser evil to choose from. They trade blows a few more times, and Geralt mega flexes on her by deflecting her sword with his from behind his back, then proceeding to swing around and break through her block with just 1 strike, sinking his sword into her shoulder. We see some more fight choreography flexing with these 4 actors, because unless you're seeing the actor's face, it's actually a stuntman. And big props to Emma Appleton, who plays Renfrey, because she's keeping up with these guys despite not being a physical actor. Finally, we reach the end of our fight, where Geralt, left with no other choice, kills Renfrey. And take a guess, but certain sorcerer is there to rile up the crowd when Geralt threatens him for trying to take Renfri's body. Stregobor. Stregobor taunts him that he made a choice. He chose the lesser of two evils. But he'll never actually know if it was the correct choice to make, quite literally hammering the nail in both the coffin of our amazing fight scene and the setup for our narrative elements that will prevail throughout The Witcher. Thanks for taking the time to watch this. Your support is so important to growing this channel. So give me a like or leave a comment if you enjoyed it, and if you want to hear more of my confused ramblings, you can click that little red button to subscribe for more content.